for our keynote speaker today. This is Peter Pianico, and he had worked on building a strong support network that helped him find joy in teaching. It also helped him to take risks and try new things with his students. Today, Peter's going to share his experience of being a risk taker and challenge all of us to do that as well. He's a 5th grade teacher at DJV, Dorothy J. Vaughan Elementary School in Charlotte, and he's also one of our very own PDL change agents, and we're so excited to welcome Peter Pianico this morning. Woo!
Thanks for coming for a Friday. My name is Peter Pianico. I teach 5th grade, and I'm also a discovery educator and a PDL change agent. Now, before we start, I just want to warn you guys that I'm still new at presenting, so I have a tendency to talk a little too fast and move my arms around like Ricky Bobby. So if you feel like I'm talking too fast, just come to slow down a little bit. I just want to get started by asking you guys to think about your greatest accomplishment as an educator, your most proudest moment or your greatest experience as an educator, and try and summarize that into a 6-word story if you could. Think about your greatest accomplishment or your most successful moment, nice going, and try to summarize that into a 6-word story. Anything. If you feel like you're ready to share your story, just tell your neighbor what your 6-word story is about your greatest accomplishments or your greatest successes as an educator. Tell your neighbor. You can talk. Right. I see you. Thumbs up when you're ready? You all shared?
No, because you know me. So I was going to say give me Brent's number because I want to text him and go.
Mine is my students became leaders of their learning. Mine is students became leaders of their learning. It's when the very first time I let control of the classroom, and for years I always thought teachers should be in charge of everything, and then the students just didn't be told what to do. But eventually I figured out that it's about students taking ownership so they can learn to love learning, and that changed my career forevermore. That risk made me more successful as an educator. That's what this session's about, is to trying something new and different, even if you're not really sure if it's going to work out. So I want to tell you a story of how I came to be. Several years ago, I had this passion. I wanted to do a Rube Goldberg in my classroom. And I just always wanted to try it. It would be a great idea to teach forces of motion with a Rube Goldberg. And through trial and error, it didn't work out. So through those different ideas, I came up with a different one, a better one, which is to do a miniature golf course. And through trial and error, that didn't work out until we figured out that the only way it works is using only hot glue and cardboard. The only thing that stood up. So through that, we taught in isolation at first because we're teaching forces of motion. So each kid did one for inertia, one for velocity, one for friction, and they taught each, and then we did it in isolation to make sure we knew each standard. And then once they completed all that, then they went to any group they wanted and built whatever they wanted, as long as they can explain the forces behind it. So they built tunnels and jumps and games and all a bunch of crazy things. And some of them even didn't work out, like they took a risk and they tried doing a loop that didn't work. But that they learned everything they could about forces of motion using these projects. And this is the first time, I think, for a lot of them, for them to do hands-on learning. I think a lot of them are used to just sitting in their desks learning from the teacher and not taking ownership of their learning. And I had different types of kids, different personalities, different learning styles, and all of them were engaged and all of them were successful in this event. And not only do they create what they learned, but they also explain what they learned when we invited the whole school to play, and we all set up all the courses, and each kid manned each station and explained how each forces worked while the kids were playing. So it was a very successful event for all the kids involved. The best one was this one. This monstrosity was made by 2 boys. I had to tell them to stop eventually because they just kept on building. But these 2 boys built this one thing that started with one spot and then went 9 or 10 different directions, and they all wound up in the same spot. And these boys were academically, through their data, not supposed to be very successful. But because of all the hands-on learning they did this year, they received high scores on their science EOGs. And it even made national news and wound up on the Golf Channel and sharing this video and a couple other conferences. I haven't gotten there yet, but other people have been sharing this video. So yay, kind of me. So, but these guys are great. So, this is all what they wanted to do. That's my favorite one, where it switches the balls. That's from behind. What made this so successful is I took a risk. I let the kids take ownership of their learning by creating these projects and then letting go. We flew out a couple of power outlets, but we had a good time doing it. And because I started with the why, I know many people they tell you to start with the what, but I started with the why, a passion that I wanted to do a Rube Goldberg, I wanted to do a miniature golf course, and then I matched the standards. Simon Sinek has done a great TED Talk about starting with the why, and even has a book called Starting with the Why, which is a great read. The TED Talk is amazing. And he illustrates that the most successful people and the most successful businesses and educators start with why versus starting with the what. And he illustrates that with a golden circle. He says most people start with what they have to do, what standards they have to teach, how they go about teaching it, and the results that come out of it. Or they have a product they want to sell, how they're going to sell it and market it, and then they make a profit. But he says the most successful people like MLK, companies like Microsoft and Apple, they started with the why because they had a passion for something, and then they went through how they're going to go about doing it, and then they matched the results with it. So for education, my passion is why I want to do is a Rube Goldberg and a miniature golf course, how I'm going to do it in my classroom, and then what standards I'm going to match with it. So it was more of a risk, but it worked out. I just recently watched on Netflix the history of Funko Pop, and they had the same passion. They started with the why because they had a passion for nostalgia of 1950s, 1960s corporate mascots. And they had a passion, and they wanted to find other people that had the same passion and produce a product to make these people have something of their childhood, of old school mascots. And they started with the why. They didn't start with a company to make a profit. They started with a company to make connections with people with the same passions and desires as they did. And they became very successful. And they started with the why. Now we can just put that in education. Like most of the things I've learned over the years, I learned most of my tricks and most of my innovations and mindsets and technologies through Discovery Education. And one of them was green screening. And I just wanted to try it in my classroom. I thought it was one of the greatest things I ever saw, and I wanted to implement it immediately. So I started with the why. I took a risk, and I tried using green screening in my classroom. Didn't work out very well, and the standards worked out well. We learned, but the products they made with green screening wasn't very successful. But we learned, both my students and I learned from it, and we learned from our mistakes, and it was a huge learning curve. But I didn't give up there. I tried a different product. I tried a different thing that I learned from Discovery Ed, which was even more exciting and interesting, and that was a lot more successful with my kids, and that was augmented reality.
Oh, that's so cute.
technology was a huge wow factor for myself and for my kids because it was like a Harry Potter kind of environment where the kids could make anything come to life and produce these images and videos. They were able to make their interactive notebooks come more interactive, more alive. Their bulletin boards came to life, their word walls, whatever they can augment, they did. And it was a huge way for the kids to learn. And they were very successful. It was a risk because it was another technology that could have screwed up, but they did very well with it. And what makes green screening and augmented reality so much fun is not because I get to show off in front of the kids and put it on Pinterest. It was the point that the kids can show what they've learned about what they've tried and how they can explain themselves, and they can show off and they can be successful. That's why I love those two products. So what I did is through these two experiences, I came up with another idea, another why, and I took a risk, was to mash the two together, was to use my success in augmented reality and combine the learning curve from green screening to produce another project. And what we did was my students created picture books that they would write their stories about how their characters changed over time, which is a 5th grade literacy standard. And then they drew pictures, and the pictures, if you look at them, so you're storing in your picture books, but if you scan the pictures, they come to life. So it was a combination of both these technologies to produce these products. Here's a couple examples of some of those. This is a Wookiee that was accepted to the Jedi Academy, and he was bullied at first because he's different, but eventually they accepted him for being different.
Help! I can't do it. I can't use the force. Help! Oh, thank you. You saved me. Yeah, you're not a hairball anymore. Let's go. High five.
The next one is a boy that had to live up to his expectations of his father to be a famous wrestler, but eventually came to his own destiny and his own decisions.
I'm really small. Everyone is bigger than me and tougher. You still here? Why don't you just give up? Ouch. You're just the one. You can't beat me. Noodle arms.
This one's a girl that was a mermaid, and she was ashamed of being different than her classmates, but eventually she learned to accept who she is as a unique person and be part of the community or class.
Hi, Dr. Travis. Well, your daughter's all ready to go. She just needs to take her medicine. Yay, my daughter is able to go home. Thank goodness I can leave now.
This is the greatest superhero that had to ask for help because he learned that he's too arrogant.
Hey, Super Fan! No, it's my arch nemesis, Dr. Van! I'm gonna finish him off!
So all these technologies made the class more fun, and it brought more joy into the classroom. And through that, I learned that this quote from Arthur Chenesay that's also on the Willy Wonka really personifies who we are as educators and who you guys are as educators, because you're here on a Friday learning new things. Because as PDL educators, you guys are the music makers, you guys are making dreams happen, you're making change. And you should applaud of who you are, because if it wasn't for the PDL, then education would continue being what it is. And then you guys are making those changes and taking those risks. So you guys are making all these dreams come true for these kids and bringing back the joy in education. So yay for you being on a Friday. But it's not about technology. It's just about a different mindset. You don't have to integrate technology to be a different PDL teacher or a better teacher. It's just being different, because that's what personalized learning is about, is changing your mindset about education. An example is in my school this year, we're all mandated to do read alouds. And we're supposed to have sticky notes and pre-planned lessons and everything scripted before we did our read alouds. And I had one teacher that refused to do that because he wanted his reading to be authentic and real as he read to his kids, and show the excitement, and show the passion, and make the connections to his standards and to his kids. And he felt he couldn't do it if he was scripted. He's not a good actor. But he stuck to his guns, he took that risk, and he read it authentically. And his kids were very successful this year in literacy. I mean, he took his risk, and people did his walkthroughs, and they were penalizing him for not having his sticky notes, but he said, I'm not doing it. He said, yes, I'm doing the read-alouds, I'm doing the standards, but I just can't teach scripting. I have to do it my way, even though, I can't be like everybody else, but I'm still doing what everybody else needs to do. So that's what brings back joy into the classroom. Because I know we have to teach our standards and do our standardized tests, but without joy, we can never reach those goals. And here's a video that many of you probably seen about joy. I just want to show it to you anyway. Not that one, I just want to leave it fun. But, I'm in a bad mood, I just do that. I watch that video. This one, you've probably seen this one before.
This is my hypothesis, and this is the actual. My hypothesis on successes is 2. I think it will have 10 to 20. 10 to 20 failures and 2 successes. And that's my hypothesis. Oh!
That's what makes education fun, is like having that, we've all had that kid in our class before, and we're all going to have that kid again in our classes. I mean, that's the kind of kid we want every day. And that's what makes PDL so important, is that it brings out the joy in education. It's what brings these kind of kids back into our classrooms again. And that's why we're all here in the first place, to make change, to learn something new and apply it to our classrooms for next year. And you can't fake that kind of joy. It's the happiness, pure happiness comes from a sense of accomplishment, not just extrinsic or intrinsic kind of rewards. But it comes from that sense of accomplishment. And as PDL, that's what we can do with our children. So that's why having PDL with us, we can bring back excitement to our classrooms. If we're excited about what we're learning, then our kids will be excited about what we're learning. But if we're not really interested in what we're doing, then the kids are not going to be interested in what they're doing, and then they're not going to be very successful. So yes, change and taking risk is sometimes lonely and isolated and difficult, because you might be the only person in your grade level, you might be the only person in your whole school that wants to make change. But that's why it makes it more important. I mean, my whole entire career I've been by myself doing all these weird things, and everyone else just kind of mocks me for the puppets and the weird stuff I do. But I do it anyway because I believe that I have to make a change, and I have to bring back joy into the classroom and let the kids take ownership, regardless of how everybody else is teaching. So let me show you what it means to start a movement, even if you're by yourself. The shirtless dancing guy is professional development. He's there to share this new technology, this new innovation, this new mindset. And his job is very important as professional development, but he by himself is not everything. You need that first follower to have the courage to try this new professional development. And the professional development guy, shirtless dancing guy, his job is to embrace the first follower and make that person feel accomplished and successful in trying this new idea. But now the job has switched to the first follower, and his job is the most important one. He has to embrace this new idea, but not only that, he has to invite others, because this one teacher doing these great things is not good enough. he has to invite other teachers and other people to try this new idea and mindset and become a part of a movement. Because right now, the mindset, the status quo is to not get involved. Everybody else is sitting out, not getting involved, and staying together because it's safer not to try and take any risks. It's safer to be like everybody else. But they start to see this movement because now there's 3 of them. At first, it was only that one weird teacher, but now there's more. And then as people start seeing that they're learning and the kids are enjoying it, then the mindset changes. And now the status quo is about trying this new idea because the people feel obligated that they have to try because now everyone else is doing it, so I feel like I have to get up and go try this new idea. So that first follower has now started a movement, and the status quo now shifts into saying I can't be involved anymore to I have to get involved because everyone else is doing it. And now the whole school has changed because of that one, of the courage of that first follower going to professional development with some shirtless dancing guy. So, you know, Aubrey is the shirtless dancing guy. But we learn from him, and then all of you guys are the followers that will bring this movement to us. Wayne Fisher is a visionary. He's the person that has taken risks before. He's admitted that he's made mistakes, and he learns from them. He believes in the same thing, that he took a risk, he started with the why. He knew that science should be taught by people, and so should be taught by people learning to love learning, not necessarily a mandated textbook or mandated curriculum. He believed in it should be evolving all different resources, all different people, and learning and sharing, connecting to build the Science Alliance through all the people that are loving and have the passion for education and the passion for science. And that's the vision, that's the direction he went. He took a risk and he started with the why versus starting with what needs to be done. And we've been very successful in science because of his movement. Education is a great place to be nowadays because there's all these different movements. There's all these different resources and companies that believe in starting with the why and believes taking a risk. And these people are started with educators, or they're recruiting educators to lead their way. They're not doing it to make a profit because they know better than that. But they are starting because they have a passion and because they have a vision that they believe that education should be different, should be better. And that's why these companies are starting with the why and taking risks and providing their resources, a lot of them free, to help us become better educators. So I have this outside my classroom. I have to add the technology part because people still judge and still people make comments about the puppets and the noise and the chaos. But the kids still learn. And yes, our line is never straight in the hallway, and the cafeteria we're always the noisiest, and sometimes food is flying across the room. But we're learning. And every teacher that has ever encountered my students always say the same thing: that they always know how to get together. They always know how to work collaboratively and get the job done. And they work. And they always have it as a team spirit because they learn to work together from the very first step. You know, yes, there are a lot of kids in classes in my school that are better behaved, but because they don't know how to work together. They know how to work at their desk by themselves and being compliant. My kids know how to get out of their seats and learn and share and connect because that's the kind of environment I want. That's why we're here. Because with personalized digital learning, we're making those students become leaders of their own learning. And once they become leaders of their own learning, then they learn, and then while they're learning, they're becoming a part of that learning, and they can retain it more because it's a part of their learning versus being a spectator. And then once they retain it, then they can apply it more. And once they apply it more, they become more successful. And when they're more successful, then they can become lifelong learners, which is the whole purpose of education, not just to teach your standards and do well in your tests. So being the PDL team as you guys are, it brings back joy to the classroom because you guys can celebrate how all these great accomplishments happen because you're taking risks, because you're starting with the why, because you're here now. And you're also lifelong learners. And being part of the personalized digital learning, it's a continuous movement to learn new ideas and innovations and apply it to our classroom. But I feel like since all you guys are here on a Friday, and some of you are online, that's fine, but you guys are learners, but I think that you guys being here on a Friday and wanting to take these classes, I feel like that you guys are PDL leaders. That's what I think the L stands for when it comes to you guys. So again, great job being here on a Friday, and a great job taking these classes and spending your summer here learning new things that you can apply to your classrooms for next year. So again, when I was alone in my classroom, alone in my building, I I had a large network of people with Discovery Ed because I went to their conferences, I connected with these people online and physically, and I made connections. I became a part of a network where I wasn't alone, even though I was alone physically, but I wasn't alone digitally. And that's what the PDL is for. They believe the same thing, that we utilize each greatest resource, which is each other. So learning and sharing, connecting, besides your own classroom. It's like, yes, your classroom is being very successful, but if you're not learning and sharing, connecting with other people, then you're missing the point of education. We're trying to share and learn and connect with other people so all our students can be successful, regardless of your class or grade level or your school or district, is to keep connecting, keep sharing, keep learning so that we can make changes to our schools and to this country. We always hear these negative things online or in the media, but yet if we don't build better students, then we can't solve any of the issues that we have nowadays. Because we're part of the problem if we don't do that. So take a risk, try coding, green screening, gamification. There's all these great classes you can take today. And if you feel like you're reluctant to try Canvas or you're kind of nervous about green screening, then that has to be the class you take, because you have to take that risk and start with the why and just try it. Just try starting one of these classes. Which one are you going to try? Tell somebody next to you which class you're going to take and why you want to take this class. Or you're scared to try Google, or you're scared to try coding. You got to do it anyway.
Your four choices. I didn't. When I hit on it, it said this page doesn't exist.
Okay.
You doing Google?
Well, one thing is everybody's
You
going
doing coding?
screen screen, gamification, Chromebook Ninja, coding.
Oh, that's more than 4. Okay.
Yeah, so there's lots of options, but you get to take 4 if you do that. So when you walk down the hall,
Yeah, it's like we did yesterday. I gotta talk to somebody about. I couldn't see my choices.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of people have them up. You should be able to go to the bit.ly/CMS_PDL.
I'm gonna go to Canvas first, and I'll do it from there. Thanks. Where are you going?
I'm doing the Google Tools one.
All day?
Yeah, I'm the moderator for that one.
Oh, congratulations. What are you gonna be
You
teaching?
do it.
Google Tools. So
You guys ready to start your day? You guys ready to take risks? Ready to start your learning?
Nice.
So in a few minutes,
Font of Google Classroom.
take a class in gamification, coding, Google, Canvas, or more. Enjoy your day, learn, share, and connect.
You can't do everything, you
Yes,
know?
ma'am.
I mean, you can't do everything well, so you have to,
What's that?
right?
It's an app. I can show you in a little bit.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'll put my stuff back up.
Hey,
I'll
Audrey,
show you
did you
what
see
that
your
is.
choices for today? I still can't see my
The
choices.
Discovery Education Network has adopted this quote. I feel like it's a perfect quote for you
If
guys
I
as
get
well.
like enough and I'm bored, I want to go somewhere else. I don't know where to
When
go.
you find people who not only tolerate your quirks,
Canvas in the morning.
but celebrate them with glad cries of me too, be sure to cherish them because those weirdos are your tribe. This is your tribe of weirdos, people that want to make change, that want to try something new, that will take these classes on a Friday instead of going to the beach. So enjoy your day. Oh, glad you're talking, because it shows that you're excited about taking the classes that you're doing. Or you're talking about Pinterest, whatever, or or what's on TV. But I'm just pretending that you guys, really like the session. But anyway, so this is what my mama did. So again, enjoy these classes. My name is Peter Panico. I'm a Discovery educator, but I'm also a PDL change agent, and so are you. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope that you will make a change and take a risk and try something new. Thank you.
What about
Thank you so much.